a cool down is coming next week, especially the middle of next week through the last few days of July. We are expecting a cool down, especially for the Great Lakes region, maybe as far west as into Missouri, Iowa, and North Dakota, but the central plains will probably be pretty warm compared to further east. But I think most of the region will be in average to below average temperatures for a week's time frame. But right now, we are experiencing a heat wave with this ridge that is in place. But as forecasted, this ridge is slowly breaking down. We are currently in a pretty expansive, still pretty strong ridge. But as we get to tomorrow, but especially Friday time frame, the ridge will be pretty much gone at this point. We are still gonna have a northwest flow in place, but not no stout or what do you want to say strong ridging that will be in place that will bring us to very hot temperatures. It looks like we have about 2 more days of high heat compared to July standards, even until we start getting closer back to average and then below average slightly. Let's move into next week. And then, but there's some troughing starting to show up for this weekend that will help the portions of the Great Lakes to be below average for temperatures as well, or at least closer to average as soon as this weekend. For the west will still be pretty warm because there is some ridging showing up. It's a weak ridging though, but showing up further west up into southern Canada and down into portions of the mountain west. So the plains will still stay pretty warm for the most part. But as we move it into early next week, we start seeing more troughing showing up into the Great Lakes region. Well, that comes in from Canada, with any ridging showing up much further. Let's zoom out a little bit. Much further northwest, up into western Canada, as this troughing continues to rotate around Canada and move into the United States at times, or especially into the Midwest and Great Lakes region. This will bring in the below average temperatures. Now, this is the European model. It tends to have a pretty warm bias, and I will show the GFS model as well as what that shows, because it will probably be a more reasonable solution, even though it can be an inaccurate model. There are certain things it is good at. But having this ridging showing up northeast of Canada and then up into northwest Canada, having these ridging placements right there, that's usually a sign that can displace some of the polar vortex. Obviously, we're in July, so we don't actually get negative temperatures. But when you get this troughing to split out of the polar region because of the ridging that will be in place up there, the troughing will shoot south, shoot west, and shoot east, or it would just split and just shoot and other places across the globe instead of the polar region. This time around, it seems that we're gonna have some of that troughing dive south into the United States, which will bring them pretty strong cold fronts as well. Now, as we move forward, we continue to see at least some troughing just hanging around through the rest of June into the Great Lakes region and into northeast, just in the Midwest overall. This is a pretty dominant northwest flow that I will show the mid-level winds map as well. And we still see two areas of ridging up north, up as you get closer to the polar region, with some ridging even showing up into the Gulf of Alaska. Assuming this ridging happens over the Gulf of Alaska, that can bring a more potent troughs to move through with even colder air at times. We could be seeing lows down to low 50s even for a couple of nights as you get to the end of next week and to, the further north you go, obviously. But it's still about 15 degrees below average for temperatures, even at night for late July standards. As we continue to move forward through the rest of July, we continue to see that troughing hanging around the eastern half of the country or so, with some ridging showing up into the west. That's not really surprising in this type of pattern. But either way, the Midwest and Northeast will probably have a pretty good amount of troughing showing up next week and through the last few days of July. There is still some ridging showing up through the end of the month up north and into Northern Canada and even north of there into the polar region. Once this ridging breaks down, we'll probably get a return back to average to above average temperatures as we get into early August. But at least we should have a week or week and a half of a pretty good relief from the very hot temperatures. Being late July though, temperatures will still be in the upper 70s to low 80s. A couple times it could be mid 80s for highs still, but there will be times where temperatures will definitely be a lot colder compared to now, and it will be a lot more noticeable too. It seems like as we look at the middle of a wind map now, it will we can definitely see the northwest flow showing up as we get to this is next week. Yeah, next week we see this troughing showing up for the north in Canada still, as we just showed before. We showed the middle of a height map. Now this is the middle of a winds map. Now we are seeing the northwest flow showing up on the northern fringe of some ridging trying to show up. So a trough over there, a trough over here, and as this trough continues to pull down, we continue to see that northwest flow moving around. As long as this flow stays northwest, we will have below average temperatures. If the flow tries to move to have a more of a westerly flow, that is more of a Pacific flow, which can bring a pretty mild pattern. That is how the winter time frame can get pretty mild, is because of a Pacific flow. But I'm thinking that we stay in a northwest flow because of the troughing. The troughing placement is in the southeast Canada. You typically have that northwest flow of a polar jet that moves over the Midwest and the Northeast. But yeah, the rest of the month, it seems like we're going to have that northwest flow staying around. Looking at this model. Now, taking a look at the GFS model, as you can see right now, we have that troughing in place. I'm at troughing. The ridging in place, but there's some troughing showing up in the southeast portions of Canada as well. And then, as we move into, let's skip to about next week or so, we start seeing this troughing showing up in pretty much the same place as what the European model had, and with ridging showing up for the north into the polar region. Pretty strong ridge showing up well up into the polar region as well. That will definitely bring pretty potent troughing down to the Great Lakes region. So as we get into the middle of next week, this is definitely a lot different look than the European model for the middle of the heights. That has this eastern ridge, pretty expansive of a ridge showing up. I don't think this will materialize, and it has a lot more troughing showing up into the polar region, but it does have that troughing coming down into the Great Lakes region still. So we might have more of a connected pool of cold air from the polar vortex moving down. If this would verify, you have this connection of cool air all up in the polar region. This would bring even colder temperatures than what the European would show, and I will show some of that too. Now, this is for later next week. It is a week out or so, but temperatures don't change too much. I mean, it's no different than if you go look at your weather app. Your weather app will have show temperatures 7 to 10 days out as well. I mean, and that only shows one model. I'm showing more than one model as well. So there's that for you. So if you have this troughing connected into the polar region, you can get some pretty strong cold fronts to move through, even for July standards. Now, if this was winter time frame, we'd be talking about cold fronts that can bring temperatures down into probably the single digits because of this connected troughing. So as we move into the rest of the month, we continue to see at least some troughing moving through the Midwest as well. Now, the placement of the trough shifts around a little bit, but at least some ridging showing up on the GFS model as well for the southwest portions of the country. But still, a very stationary ridge showing up in the eastern portions of the screen, or the northeast portions of the screen, up into the polar region, that will sit around for 1 to 2 weeks, and that will be the main focus to get that troughing showing up further east. Now, if you had the troughing into the Gulf of Alaska, the troughing placement, which it's starting to show here now, that's why I had the troughing further west, but the troughing will be a lot more centered over the Midwest, and that would bring even colder temperatures than what might be in the northeast portions of the Great Lakes or into the northeast portions of the country as well. Now, this is the European model temperatures compared to average. As we move into, hold on, I gotta change the model around. As we move into later next week, you can see that temperatures start to go below average into the Midwest at times, and the European can have a warm bias just to make sure. But looking at a 5 to 7 day mean, this is a 7 day mean to the rest of the month. We can at least, okay, 5 day mean, rest of the month, you can see north of I-80 or I-70 for the most part, is seeing average to below average temperatures through the rest of July. Okay, this model. Now, if we take a look at the GFS model, again, with that more connected troughing, I would not be surprised if GFS is slightly colder. They can have a pretty cold bias as well. The European can have a pretty warm bias, so we gotta go kind of in between at this range. But as we move into next week, yeah, yep, definitely a lot colder temperature showing up. This is a 5 day mean even. As you look at through the rest of the month, when you see temperatures upwards of 10 degrees below average in a week time frame. So, but at least some consistency showing up on the model guidance of at least a cool down coming later next week through the rest of July. This is a look at the ensemble, European ensemble. It's a bit warm, too warm, I would say. I doubt that's happening. This is a GFS ensemble, which it seems a bit more likely every solution showing up with a pretty good cool down to the eastern portions of the country, to the Midwest. I do think the plains will stay closer to average rather than above average for temperatures, but it is still at least something there. Now, for fun, before I end this video, we want to take a look at the temperatures as we move into for lows from the GFS. Yeah, look at it shows lows in the upper 40s for temperatures later next week. People will be posting this, I guarantee it, and thinking it's real, but the solution is highly unlikely. Now, if you can get troughing to connect to the polar region, we could see a pretty big cool down to the last week of July. But upper 40s temperatures, even for lows in late July, is pretty hard to come by. And highs are get back into the 60s, 70s at times, but it's only, it still has a pretty cold few days for sure to move in. But every day won't be below average for temperatures, but most days, I think between the 20th and the last day of July, we'll probably have below average temperatures. Here are the temperature averages for just a few hour time frame. It has temperature averages as low as 15 to 20 degrees below average from the GFS model. But looking at the European model for just that one day, I'm gonna go this model run. I'm not sure what day it was exactly, but either way, it's not as cold. So the European model again usually is warmer than GFS as well. So I think that's gonna be it for this video. But I expect a couple more days of heat, some chances of severe weather, and then a pretty good cool down with cold fronts moving through middle of next week. That could be on the stronger side.